What's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football, and welcome back here to the team. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. The team includes Jerry Hamilton, of course, the estimable Jerry Hamilton, the latest member and the newest member of the On Texas Football family. My man Jeff Howe is here as well, so we appreciate him joining us. Bobby, of course, got some things to do, so we got a nice team here. We'll talk a ton about the recruiting elements right now. We'll get into some of the recruiting headlines and some of the news notes and nuggets from the recruiting trail. We'll also get to Arch Madness, which has already started before March. I mean, it's crazy. My timeline is full of Arch. All types of Arch news. So we'll get into that coming up a little bit later on. You guys know you drive the show wherever you guys want to go. That's where we'll head. Super chats jump to the front of the line. You can interrupt the show at any time. So appreciate all you guys participating in the show wherever you're joining us from. All right, let's get right to it, guys. Let's start with a little bit of the Arch Madness. I got to tell you, we started Marty Smith interview with ESPN, but it seems like since then, whether it be the interview with, was it the Broadcast Boys? They had another interview that he had. Then you got the Red Bull announcement from the NIL deal and that commercial. I saw him dunking, doing a windmill. Oh, man. The Arch Madness seems to have started. There's no doubt about that. Longhorn fans are giddy about it. But, man, what do you think of the is it a marketing? Is this a kind of a marketing ploy? Is this a marketing strategy? Or is this just, hey, the biggest star in college football right now is Arch Manning, and this is just a result of, that stardom that they're receiving?
Well, I think it started with obviously the Red Bulls, a huge NIL deal for him. And he said it in the interview through obviously Peyton and Eli. And so that started it. But then off of that came everything else. The interview with the other one that's on Instagram, I can't, whatever those guys' names are, it's pretty funny. That was funny stuff. It showed his personality. So yeah, that showed his personality, right? But then the national media latched on for their clicks is what happened next. I mean, you have Cam Newton sitting there saying Jerry Jones is trying to tank to get Nick Saban and Arch Manning, which 83-year-old men don't tank seasons because they don't know how many they have left. So that was clearly clickbait. Fox Sports comes out with if everybody was eligible for the draft right now, Arch would go number one. He started one Power 4 game in his career. He would go number one overall.
Number one. Yeah.
Number one with one start against the worst team in the SEC. And I come from he might be the number one pick. I'm not saying he is or isn't asked to play on the field, but I come from the standpoint of Arch. I got to go prove it. I think we're all going number one in the draft. So that was clickbait as well, right? So everybody's trying to it's gone from the clickbait was Arch should transfer to now how do we latch on to Arch the starter and drive numbers through that. And all I can say is it's going to be a wild ride. I said when he signed, I don't think with the three of us has never talked about this, but I said when he signed with Texas, I thought it was $100 million deal for the University of Texas. And all this publicity that's coming through Arch the next 2 or 3 years, I'll say 3 until we know it's 2, because it's not going to be 1, is unbelievable for UT and UT football.
Yep.
I mean, there's a pictures now, and hopefully Matt can get this up on the screen at some point. I think he just did. Now what we're seeing, this was just on Smith Orogbo's Instagram story, so it wasn't up very long. But this is what we're now going to start seeing in Austin. Peyton and Eli and Archie are now going to be around the program. They weren't going to do that when Quinn was the starter out of respect to Quinn. They didn't want it to be a circus, Jeff Howe. But now they're going to start to be around the program. And if you think that isn't going to drive this thing to a next level for the University of Texas and Texas football next 2 years, I don't know what to tell people. I mean, Peyton and Eli are going to be around the program, not trying to have influence, supporting Arch.
Yep. I've never seen, and you guys have been around the program longer than I have, but I'm talking all UT sports. I've never seen this fan base react to somebody. I'm talking about just on a local level. Yep. I've never seen this fan base react to somebody the way they react to Arch. Jerry, we were standing outside Moncrief last Saturday after Junior Day. We're catching kids as they're leaving Moncrief. There were people leaving the basketball game, milling around Moncrief.
Yeah.
And we heard whispers. They just wanted a glimpse of Arch.
Yeah.
Like I've never heard of that happening. Like, hey, we just want to be able to see Arch. Like it is right. I think we mentioned this on the winning drive yesterday. It is, and I'm glad Marty Smith said it. It is like Tim Tebow levels of hysteria. Jerry, I mean, I think we're getting ready to see something. The only things I could compare it to that I've seen in my lifetime, and I don't think I'm exaggerating this, like when Tiger Woods was coming up, when Tiger turned pro, right around the time you won that first Masters, LeBron, and maybe Bryce Harper. But other than that, that's kind of the stratosphere Arch is in terms of the number of eyeballs on him.
Yeah, he's going to be worth $2 to $4 million. Somebody, Jeff Carey, who's on our morning show, he predicted he'd be worth 2 to 4 million viewers per Texas game next year, and I tend to agree.
Wow.
I mean, again, small scale, but you guys know I dabble in the sports cars and collectibles world. There are people like buying into breaks and spending like thousands upon thousands of dollars because they want that first Arch Manning auto or that first Arch Manning patch card. Like they're disregarding like Cam Morton, Shador Sanders. None of that matters. Everybody's clamoring for Arch. So it's not just us here in the Texas bubble. It's across the country. Everybody's just fascinated with Arch.
Hey, Rod, I want to get to your thoughts on Arch, the player next year. But before that, question for the chat. So if those that haven't noticed, Jeff Howe has Big 12 helmets back behind him on his wall. So my question for the chat is, does he keep the Big 12 helmets for nostalgia, or is it time to pluck them all off and replace them with SEC helmets? That's the question for the chat today. We're trying to help Jeff with this helmet decision.
Yeah, I could just go with like, I mean, I've got basically that's kind of my deal. If I visit a college campus, I got an Air Force one up here when I visited Air Force Academy, so I could just swap them out every show.
Yeah. We should do what you should do is do one for each win of every team.
Oh, I could do that.
See, like we remove Kansas State after the Mississippi State win next year and put in the Mississippi State helmet. You pluck one off. Oklahoma gets to stay up there even after the win next year. Just pluck one off and put the win in. What do you think, Rod?
Yeah, no, I kind of like Jeff's right now. What his theme is that he got to visit it because it has a sentimental, value, sentimental connection. Like he's like, no, I visited and I went to their shop, whatever, and then so I go visiting that. I kind of like that. That's actually a cool story. That to me is cooler because then you can be like, no, I went there. So, and you're about to start visiting all these spots in the SEC. Now, to Jerry's point, you may not ever go to Starkville. I don't know if you I don't know. You may not get one of those.
Just put a cowbell up there on that wall.
I'll tell you what, I don't know. CJ and Bobby and I might have to talk about this. I have no intentions on going to Columbus. I may be prodded into making that trip, but I have no intentions on visiting Columbus, Ohio.
That's when you say you're going to drive, and you get a flat tire, and that radiator goes out on the way, and you couldn't make it.
Are the fans just that bad, or is that just because of the fans?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll take this from Casey.
Is it really that? Are they that bad? Are they really? I don't know.
You got to think about Casey Stutter's family, right? Played for the Broncos, some of those Broncos Raiders games back in the day.
Yeah.
He said his family has said unanimously Columbus, Ohio, and the Horseshoe is the one place they will never go back to. You talk about getting beer bottles thrown at you, spit on you, cussed at. Yeah. Apparently Ohio State fans were out of control in Columbus in 2005.
And here comes Arch.
And they just won a natty too. Now they just won a natty. They got Arch coming in. That's a good point. I didn't think about that. Because I've heard, Arkansas fans are really bad. Last out of logo, not 2 years. The first time they went there was Sark through 2021, not the recent trip. I haven't heard that many horror stories, but trip I did hear some.
Let's say Sark. Here's my challenge from a getting their head standpoint. You know who I'd send out for the coin toss with my captains of that game next year? Vince Young and Lima Swede in Columbus.
To troll them?
Have them walk out with the captains for the coin toss.
That does fit Jerry. Jerry wants to troll folks like that.
Just let Colton Quan walk out too. Just have those guys be your 4 honorary captains.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Quan will give. Hey, they still thinking about that block, man. I see that in my head right now.
So Rod, once we start getting past the hype of the media hype with Arch, How do you think the offense within Sark's scheme changes with Arch next year? I'm not sure we've had this conversation yet because it's just so fresh off the. I mean, we're just 21 days removed from the national semifinal now. So, how do you think within the scheme the differences in those two guys?
I think ultimately you'll get, and this is just me spitballing. I think the scrambling element is the number one thing. I think you'll get more with Arch. I think he'll be more because I don't think Sark's going to change his tune on design run game for the quarterback.
Great.
I think it'll get thrown in every now and then, of course, in big games, critical situations, red zone, that kind of stuff. You could get some of that design run game, but I think it's going to be far and few between where you'll get that. I think ultimately when he decides to improvise, when the play breaks down, extending plays, that's what you're going to get more of, I think, with Arch, the improvisational element, which we even saw in this short time that he played this past season, right? The couple of starts he got, you saw a lot more of that in the offense. So I do think you'll get more scramble and more scramble drill. By the way, the scramble is probably the most efficient play in football. I'm not making that up. The average scramble in the NFL is gives you nearly 8 yards per play. The average pass is a little less than 8 yards per play. It's a really efficient play, and you cannot game plan for it. The Final Four in the NFL this past season had the best 4 scramblers, the most efficient 4 scrambling quarterbacks in the NFL. That is not a coincidence, in my opinion. It's not a coincidence that in the playoffs, Patrick Mahomes all of a sudden becomes a scrambling quarterback, right? And becomes a dual threat quarterback, if you will. I think that will help Texas, but it won't be because Sark wants to infuse quarterback design. Right. That ain't happening. That's not how he operates. He said it time and time again. We don't major in quarterback run game. But I do think Arch will have his own interpretation, right, of the offense. And Sark has said he's got great instincts. And Sark has said he does not want to dull his instincts. That he wants him to rely on his instincts because he's really good. And I think his instincts are when the play breaks down, he's got to move around. So I think that's what you're going to see more of. Now, I think also the deep ball. That's natural. I said that when he got his first start. I said, guys, Arch loves the deep ball. Make the T-shirts. Chicks dig the long ball, and so does Arch. He loves the deep ball. All right. I think he just gets naturally through his progressions a little quicker. Probably because of his advanced, development, and obviously the family business being quarterback. But I think he actually looks to the deeper shots downfield, and that actually also came to fruition and materialized in the couple of starts he had this past season. So I think those are the two obvious things. And I think Sark the playbook's not going to change. The playbook is what it is. But I do think the plays in the playbook will look different. Yes. So I think he may add some bootleg, some half rolls, some waggle elements. Great. To moving the pocket, the more so than Quinn. Now Quinn moved the pocket a little bit too, but I think you'll get a lot more of that with him with traditional play action. All right, they want old school play action when you turn your back to the defense. I think that is something that they believe that he's a little bit more advanced at than Quinn was at the time too. So I think you'll get some of that. And Sark likes that because Sark's offense is a pro style offense, even though obviously it has been, I would say, tailored and tweaked for the college game. It's a pro style offense. If he gets a pro style quarterback, truly, I think you'll get more of those pro style elements.
I think Arch is going to be good for Sark because, Rod, we talked about this when Sark first got the job. You look at that offense he had at Bama in 2020. They were never off schedule. Everything was on schedule, which is why it was perfect for Mac Jones. And I think Sark's ideal world, Quinn was kind of his ideal quarterback because what we'll see when Quinn's on schedule and it's first read, it's boom, boom, boom. He's in a rhythm and you're going. I think with Arch, I think Sark knows he has to let go of that a little bit because he can't rein in Arch's instincts. You don't want to do that. You want to let him scramble. Like you said, what he can control is how much quarterback run he calls. So I think he's going to control that because he knows he can't control the scrambling element. You guys remember year one, they're playing at TCU and Casey Thompson breaks contain and he's got like 40 yards of grass in front of him. And he hesitated about 2 or 3 seconds before he wanted to pull the ball down and run. That's probably because guys had been told at that time, hey, don't scramble unless you absolutely have to. So it's like, if that's Arch Manning, Arch isn't thinking twice. Arch is pulling the ball and going. And we saw Quinn kind of evolve to that point. So I think this is just another way of evolving. But I think Sark knows he has to evolve this way to get the most out of Arch. To me, I think your roster moves, everything you do over the next 2 off seasons, it's all about maximizing your time with Arch. Every move you make has to be with that in mind.
I agree with that. Now, I love what you said about that offense he had at Bama. That's his ideal offense with Mac Jones. And Mac Jones, I want to say the status, he went to his second read like 15. He got past his first read like 15% of the time. Like, like it was an offense where, you know, he was always on that first read and boom, hitting on schedule, on time, in rhythm. And I think that's what Sark loves, and that's what he likes. But that won't be Arch all the time. And I think that's what we'll get used to and seen a lot more of. And Arch is not, he's not a robot. Arch isn't a robot. I don't think, even though Sark says that he likes to, his preparation, he likes to be prepared for every situation. I think that's just part of the Manning in him. He wants to be prepared for every situation, but I do think he works off schedule really well from what I actually noticed. All right, before we move on, we'll ask some questions here, and I want to get you guys' thoughts about a couple other topics, but let's thank one of our sponsors for our live stream here. Let's thank our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery. We appreciate our friends over at Flat Creek for being a part of the On Texas football family. Flat Creek Estate Winery, folks, just minutes from downtown Austin. That's one of the best parts about Flat Creek, just minutes from downtown Austin, and they've won award after award for their vintage wine, Super Texan. Super Texan now available actually at your local Specs. I've seen a display at your local Central Market as well here in Austin. So the good word is indeed getting out about our friends over at Flat Creek. So not only do they produce some of the best wines on the market, including Central, their Super Texan, but also they produce some great environments, the great ambiance, a great venue for barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend. It's perfect for a date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with your significant other. That's Flat Creek Estate Winery. As a matter of fact, we have a member of the On Texas football family that got engaged recently at Flat Creek Estate Winery. So no matter what the event or what the occasion, Flat Creek Estate Winery really can set the mood for you, whatever you need. So producing great wines, premium wines. I love their Pinot Grigio. Also, I love the Rosé too, really refreshing. The Super Texan, that's, trust me, folks, that is their their top notch. That is the best wine potentially that they have, but they have a lot of great wines available there at Flat Creek Estate Winery. So check it out for yourself, flatcreekestate.com. All right, let's read some of the questions here. Actually, we got a super chat from Juan. Thank you, Juan. Says, Jerry, do you think Arch will bring money in for Texas just with his name to help with NIL and pay for roster management?
Yeah, I think it's a good time to be his number one wide receiver, whoever that is.
Yeah, Wingo. It's got to be Wingo, right?
And his left tackle or right tackle or center. I mean, I think there's or the star player opposite him, Colin Simmons or whatnot. Yeah, I think we'll see some people appear with him. I'm not sitting here guaranteeing it, but yeah, that's kind of what my point of this was when I said it earlier. I think this is $100 million recruitment. And I talked to some colleagues that covered Georgia and Alabama that I worked with for many years at different spots about it when it was happening. And we were all in agreement. I mean, this was because of the social media era we're in and it's Manning, right? Even that goes way beyond Chris Sims and Phil Sims, right? That's Archie, Peyton, Eli, and Arch. Okay. That's just another level. And yeah, I think it's everybody's going to benefit from this, because it's going to put more eyeballs on the University of Texas. So, look, if you're a frontline player and you're making plays for Texas, as long as they're winning games, yeah. If you're marketable with Arch at times, yeah, that's my opinion, Jeff, Rod.
Yeah, you're already seeing it. The free media, you're already seeing it. I mean, they call it free media, but it's just impressions on social media, the random stories you brought up, Cam Newton talking about Arch, that the Cowboys are tanking for Arch, the Fox News, the Fox article, Fox College football article about Arch being taken number 1 overall if there was a draft, regardless of classification. So you're already right, the free media. I don't know what the value of that is and how you quantify that, but it is a thing. And over a 2-3 year period, I'm with you, Jerry. I think you'll get more than your money's worth or $100+ million in free media just from the impressions and all of the viral content of Arch Manning. It's already started. That's just the beginning. He hadn't even played as a starting quarterback yet. And so just imagine how much more content you're going to get out of it.
The
And,
build up to the Ohio State game starting a month before that game.
It's going to be wild. SEC, and then him playing in the SEC. Come on, man. All the schools that they all want Arch Manning to come in town and want the Mannings to come in town. They'll be covering it, talking about
his first year as a starter. You play at Georgia, who he picked Texas over, and at Florida, who Peyton picked Tennessee over when Spurrier was at Florida. I mean, it's just endless. It's endless. It's endless. And it's probably, it's coming when the schedule comes out. His second year as a starter, I bet Texas plays at Ole Miss. They just happened to play at Ole Miss in 2 years.
Happened to, yeah.
Just happened to.
Yep. They want to play that other UT. They want that to happen at one point too. So I'm with you, Jerry. I think you're right on the money.
Hey, by the way, think about being Trey Owens right now. One, you're the designated survivor. You're one play away, and we won't talk about that. But think about with Peyton and Eli around the program, because they're going to be talking ball. And Sark he's got his resume, but imagine just being in conversations as Trey Owens, just being in conversations with Peyton and having their brain to pick, Peyton and Eli, when they're going to be around the program a little bit. That's a great spot to be in if you're Trey Owens.
I know how that feels because I was that guy.
Yeah.
When I got a chance to hang out with Phil and Mike kicking it with my man Kyle Shanahan and Chris Sims, and then like the whole crew, they just want to hang out and kick it and go out to dinner. And they just, just talking ball. I mean, talking ball, like real ball. I mean, because they got real connections and been in those situations. You cannot, you can't put a price on what you learn about the game and really. So I'm with you. Because I've been that guy in there, and I just shut up and just listen. Because you would never be in that situation really again where you can talk to guys who have done that at the highest level. So that's a great point. And you're right. More and more guys are going to want to be a part of that if they can. If the Mannings are now putting their brand, their stamp on Texas football, which I think we all see is happening.
Jerry, you mentioned the preseason hype leading up to the Ohio State game. I think, our Arch, I'm sure, is going to be available at some point in the spring.
Yeah.
But I think the first time we get a taste of it, I think Sark has to bring him to SEC Media Day. I think he's got to.
Oh, has to.
And I remember Sam at Big 12 Media Days a few years ago, and I've seen some circuses. I don't think we'll ever. I can't imagine what we're going to be dealing with in Atlanta if Arch is there.
Yeah,
that's a great point. I didn't even think about that, Jeff. That's going to be wild.
Yeah.
Damn. I would love to see that picture from the above the coach's view, if you will, of the media circus when he's on the podium. Because I don't see how you avoid that if you're Sark. You got to do that.
I don't think you can, because either you're going to be asked about him and your guys are going to be asked about him, or just I'm a big believer in, hey, stuff like that, just rip the Band-Aid off, just do it, just get it over with, and you don't have to do it again.
He's ready for it. I mean, his family, he's you can tell it's a little small sample size that we've seen. He's ready for it. And his family, obviously, with the exposure they've had to the media, they're giving him tons of tips. John Bianco, shout out to John Bianco. John Bianco's really good at his job too. John Bianco will have him ready to go for that kind of stuff. So, I don't think it's not a reason to handle it with kid gloves the way Mac did with Sims. And Sims wasn't necessarily, I don't know if Sims was ready for it back then, but no need to handle it in that manner. These guys they're built, they're cut from a different cloth these days. All right, let's get to some of the super chats. Thank you guys for the super chats. We appreciate it. And thank you for that one. Let's get to Justin's. Justin said, how would y'all compare Jordan Washington to JT Sanders? JT started as a redshirt freshman. Can Jordan have that type of an impact? Jeff, I'll throw that one to you.
Actually, go ahead and start with Jerry. Jerry was going to say something on that.
Well, so one of the cool things for Jordan Washington, and I've said this before, hello, Mr. Barry Sorrell, your son's kicking butt at Senior Bowl. We're going to get to that. We're going to get Rod's thoughts on that in a second, and a couple of questions on that. But having seen Jordan in high school, obviously saw Jatavion too. He played more of a wide receiver and end when he wasn't tired, right? But he always wanted to be an offensive player. But with Jordan, what was cool is the coach he played for. He played for Todd Thompson at Langham Creek. And I've said this before, but I think it's important because he helped accelerate his development leading into Texas. Because Jordan was more of a basketball player, came back to football. But what Todd Thompson did, he was a fullback at Rice, I believe, when Trevor Cobb was the running back there. But he made Jordan play inline tight end. He kind of played him off the ball as a sniffer a little bit. He played him in the flex, but he made him a blocker too. He engaged him in the blocking game and the physical part of the game as a senior in high school. And I think that really helped Jordan because it's Rod, you can talk about it's the alignment with your eyes, what you see in your peripheral, right? Yep. Seeing those guys, those rushers, or the guys you have to block in your peripheral. When you stand there at X, the easiest thing for Todd Thompson to do at Langham Creek would have been put him at X receiver and run back shoulder fades and go routes in high school games. And he might have won 1 or 2 more games doing that. But he put his kid in the best position to develop. And I thought that was really good to see because not all high school coaches, and I'm not saying if you don't, because your job's to win games, but Coach Thompson did a really good job putting him in positions where he had to be an all-around tight end his senior year at Langham Creek. And I think that helps him because then when you're in line and you see things in your peripheral, right, you've seen them before at least. They're coming a lot faster. But that also engaged him in the physical part of the game at tight end a little bit more too. So I thought that was great what Todd Thompson did for Jordan in high school.
The thing I've never worried about with him is the athleticism translating, basketball background. You look at what I was surprised with, Jerry, just watching his body transform to where when he got into camp, when you looked at Jordan Washington in camp last year, he didn't have the grown man body, Rod, but you could tell like, dude, this kid's going to be like a 200. You never know. Sometimes it's hard to tell where these kids' bodies are going to go. But I looked at Jordan Washington, I'm like, this kid's going to be an athletic 250, 255 pounds by the time he's done filling out. And you throw in the physicality Jerry's talking about with the fact that I've never worried about the functional athleticism translating. You've got a chance to have a real live 5-tool tight end. I mean, as good as Jatavian Sanders was, we all know like he had to learn how to block. He had to learn some. And Jerry, you watched him enough at Ryan, and I watched him a couple times. Like there were plays where as much as he played, if he could take a play off, he would. The motor might not be cranked up all the time.
He never hunted contact really, and I'm not ripping a guy that's in the NFL. We're just talking about difference in players. He wasn't a contact hunting player, necessarily. He was playing around you as an athlete, and I think that was the thing that the biggest thing with JT is, that physicality that you have to accept at the next level. And look, he had it a little easier in the Big 12 too, man. The SEC physicality is a little different, but he played around a lot of contact. Mm-hmm. And I think that is, showed up a little bit in his blocking at times in college. The other thing for me, Rod, was, and Jeff, you were probably at the press conference. Remember when Jeff Banks, before the season in August, he was talking about tight ends, and he said, I'm not sure he used the term great or star, but he used one of those 2 terms when talking about Jordan Washington. I don't know if y'all remember that in August, Jeff, or I don't know if you remember that, but Jeff Banks threw that term out before the kids ever played a game.
Yeah. No, I like what I saw. I remember, I think we were talking about this, Jeff, and after I got a chance to see him, and there were some guys, and I told you that basically said, no, they might have underrated him, or he might have been ranked a little bit too low in the recruiting rankings coming out after you got a chance to see Jordan Washington in the spring game and how well he just moved for a guy that size. He's such a fluid athlete, and I haven't seen him since. I'm sure he's packed on a little bit of weight and some muscle mass. But I got really high expectations for Jordan Washington. I do think he's a guy in this Sark system. Sark says tight end, second most important position in his offense behind quarterback. I do think this year we might see him start to, even with an inexperienced group, we might see them start to transition that tight end position to be a little bit more multiple. And maybe it moves around as much as anybody. So I'm not talking just move around. I'm talking about like truly make it H-back, fullback, that kind of thing this season. And I wonder if some of the younger guys can handle that. But I think you're in good hands at the tight end position with the future going forward. So only issue is the inexperience. But I like Jordan Washington. I think Jordan Washington right now it should be the leader in the clubhouse.
The other thing I like with him too, and Jeff Banks did the same thing with Jatavian Sanders, kind of going back to what Jerry was talking about a minute ago, just to get him used to the contact. Look, it's going to be tough it was tough for him to find reps last year because of Gunnar Helm and Juan Davis, but hey, get him on as many special teams as possible. Just get his feet wet, just get him used to the speed of the game. That way you're not throwing him out there and it's like you're taking a kid the first day of quantum physics and be like, here, take the end of course exam. Best of luck. Like, no, just get his feet wet, just get him used to just absorbing contact at this level. So that way it's not completely foreign to him when he steps in there. You think about the tight ends Sark has had, Jerry, I'll give you a blast from the past. Like, you think the best he had at Washington was Safarian Jenkins.
Oh, I remember that recruitment.
ASJ. And, but Sark is, I don't think Sark, ASJ is probably the closest thing Sark has had to like a legitimate 5-tool tight end, a guy that can be a true every down player. Yeah. Jordan Washington may be the guy that profiles the best for that.
Yeah, it's a good call.
It's interesting. Yeah,
he's going to be 6'5", 260, running 4.65.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but Sark wants a physical blocker though. At tight end, he does. I mean, he really. That's why Juan Davis played. I mean,
by the way,
didn't bring you much productivity. Why Juan Davis was basically a glorified old lineman a lot of the times out there. But instead of playing the 6'0" lineman like Sark did a couple of years ago, he decided, nah, man, Juan Davis is my guy. So it's evident that look at Amari now Black. He had to compare Amari now Black and Juan Davis. He said, I'll pick Juan Davis. Why? Blocking. He's like, now Gunner, give me what I need in the passing game. I need somebody who's a capable blocker. So the 5 tool, he really does value, I guess, that 5th tool or whatever of being a blocker, of being a guy that can really make a difference blocking in the run game.
That's why it won't surprise me if Nick Townsend doesn't find his way to the field as a freshman a little bit.
Good point. Especially with as much outside zone as they run, man, your tight end's got to be either running split zone, your tight end's coming back, blocking that backside, or run the outside zone, and you got to set it either way. You need your tight end to be a difference maker.
That's why I like Townsend. I like him as the move guy when they run split zone. Jerry, I got that photo's floating around somewhere. You took that Gridiron Kings photo where it's like Safarian Jenkins and Jackson Shipley and like Miles Onyebula and that whole Texas class, because there was a time where we thought he might be coming to the 40.
Yeah, there was a time. In the old school, he would have been a high that never translated.
All right. Edgar has a super chat, said, guys, we've talked about lack of experience on the roster in 25, but talent-wise, will it be the best roster since 2005-6? Feels like dogs everywhere. Ooh, man. That's a great question. Talent-wise, how many 5-star and 4-star guys have you stacked? What's your blue chip ratio? Is that what we're looking at here, basically?
Yeah, so the crazy thing about that 05-06 roster, guys, is Colt McCoy redshirted. Jackson Shipley was out injured. I mean, he may have ended up being Vince's number 1 receiver if he hadn't got hurt, by the way, as the season moved along, even though he was a fresh. He was injured. Jermichael Finley redshirted. Tony Hills was a backup. Wow. Hello, Pastor Hills. I mean, you think about the guys that were backups, didn't play, or redshirted on that team.
Yeah.
Your backup, your entire 2 deep defensive line played in the league, because your number 2 D line that year in 05 was Brian Arakpo, Derek Loki, Roy Miller, and I forget who the other end was. But yeah, those guys were backups.
Wow. Yeah, it's freaky. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want to say it's quite there yet, but I guess you're getting close, man, because a lot of your best players are younger players. The best players of your team, there'll be younger players. Colin Simmons being one of those guys.
I think the thing with that team we're going to look back on, Rod, is Jeff, those young defensive linemen on that team. They may not have as big of a snap count impact next year, but I'm telling you, if anybody's missed shows this week, I was told or Tuesday or Wednesday that Justice Terry has been really, really good. Like, they in Austin right now, they're thinking as advertised or better. Now, that doesn't mean as a freshman in college football playing on the D line in the SEC. That's kind of what I'm talking about. The talent on the roster, I think, when we look back on this team, we're going to be like, oh my gosh, look at all the NFL draft picks. But some of those guys aren't going to play big roles. Myron Charles, Josiah, I think all 3 of those D linemen, if they just handle their business, they're all going to be pros. I heard great things about Zena this week, guys. That Texas really likes where Zena could go. How many snaps is he going to play next year? In this spring, he'll play a lot because of Vosic's surgery. But how many snaps will he even play next year? Look at the young linebackers. Ty Anthony Smith in year 2. Bo Barnes is a freshman. I mean, you start to think about that DB class of freshmen, Rod. I mean, those guys are really talented, but they may not play a lot of snaps as a whole next year.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thing I look at with this. And I'm telling you, the other guy I've heard rave reviews on is Nick Brooks. Like,
Ooh,
Nick Brooks.
Interesting.
Nick Brooks is the thought is he's definitely a tackle. That doesn't mean, though, as a true freshman, he couldn't do like an Evan Neal. I'm not comparing him to Evan Neal, but Evan Neal, Kyle Flood started Evan Neal out as a guard at Bama, then kicked him out the tackle. Same thing happened years ago with Lael Collins at LSU. So just because a guy may play some guard early on doesn't mean he's a guard in the staff size. But everything I'm hearing, Nick Brooks too, man.
I love your Justice. Do you think Justice Terry would impress enough where he would be the freshman on the NASCAR package inside, rather than, you know what I mean, rather than like a veteran D tackle?
Potentially,
that would be nasty. Ooh.
Yeah, potentially, because I mean, the thought is there's a lot with that one right now that's very positive.
Okay, let's get to Splenda Daddy, formerly Sugar Daddy. Says, welcome, new stud muffin. I think he's talking about Jeff there. So thank you, Splendid Daddy. We appreciate that. Appreciate you welcoming Jeff in. Really excited about the new addition. How about this one from Jose? He says, question, who gets more hype? VY coming back for senior season in 06 or Arch Madness this season and the following? Oh, that's good.
It's hard to compare it because Twitter wasn't around when VY came back.
Oh.
You know, you didn't have the team sites, Jerry. It was pretty primitive at that point. You know, I don't think you can compare it. I would say Arch just because it's a completely different news cycle now.
Yeah,
completely different era.
Yeah. No, it's Arch. I mean, look, there's never been. I mean, if Bronny had been a 3-year college player, but still not the same.
He's better than Bronny.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, yes. If there's a TikTok going around the place.
You know what I mean? Like, it's substantive with him because Bronny is like,
JJ Redick made a lot of shots, but calling that one was not one of them. All right, so let's see. Putting him in the game the other night was not one of the good ones he's taken. Yeah, so I don't think we've seen anything like it because also it's Texas move to the SEC that goes with it, right? I mean, it's just. I mean, there's a book of Manning. There's a 30 by 30 for 30 made. If you haven't seen it as a Texas fan, now's a good time to go watch it and get into the Manning history. But anybody thinking he's going to be a one and done, that's not happening. So it's going to be 2 years of it.
2 years. Wow.
It's Texas, and I think this is what Texas fans, and I've said this for years about the SEC, Jerry, we know this with team site dynamics. It's a different – that gives you a sample of the fandom in the SEC, and it's just a different beast when you're talking about those fan bases and how much they consume college football. Like, you look at pro teams in that region, I mean, you got some guys – I mean, there are I know way more Braves fans in the Southeast than I do Atlanta Falcons fans. They don't latch on to pro football. They latch onto their college teams. Now you've got Texas in the SEC, and not only is Texas relevant, Texas is a national title contender in the SEC with a Manning at court. Like, it's the perfect storm. It's the perfect storm for a media circus.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what'll drive A&M fans crazy if there's one in the chat.
Don't
it's
say
not
it.
Polishing another 8-4 trophy. Is if Arch gets a few roughing the passer calls here in some games.
Oh, man.
Listen, the roughing the passer thing, all right, we're not going to talk too much NFL because I know people are freaked out about conspiracy theory, whether the officiating is biased towards Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Not going to get into that. But I will say it is, because I've looked at it too, it's Patrick Mahomes' style of running. It's almost like in the NBA when James Harden got good at basically drawing fouls, and people hated that part of his game, but he was just really good at it. Patrick Mahomes has there's a part of his skill set when he becomes a runner. His style of running, it does, I think, contribute to drawing the personal fouls. I think this is a style of it, man. It is. It's weird to say that, but that's kind of part of my theory. I'm not on the grassy knoll thinking that they're biased for the Chiefs. I'm not in it. All right, let's get to Triple D. Says, Rod, will lack of experience tight ends force Sark to utilize 21 and empty more often? I will say this. I do believe Texas will be deadly out of empty with a dual threat quarterback. I've said for years, the most stressful thing that you can present to a defense is empty formation with a dual threat quarterback. There's just no way to really solve that. And you're starting to see it more in the NFL. Especially with the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, starting to see it more with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. I think with Arch Manning and they go empty, no matter what personnel grouping they're in, I think it could be a deadly combination. And to your point about forcing Sark to play more 21, he loves 12. 12 personnel is his baby behind 11. He plays more 11, one back, one tight end than any other personnel grouping. And this year, there was only 3 real personnel groupings that he utilized, and it was 11, 12, and 21. I wonder if you'll bring back the 6-0 line package, the Big 11, Big 12 this year because of the lack of experience at tight end. And if he wants to run the ball, and maybe they're not proven blockers just yet either. So maybe you'll get some of that, but I think you should always utilize more 21. I've been saying that for years. He should have more variety in his offense in terms of personnel grouping. I think he should have a 10 personnel grouping. I've said that before too, with just 4 wide receivers. Sounds great. He had it at Bama. Now he had that balance because he had 4 first-round wide receivers. But last year you had embarrassment of riches at wide receiver. You know, he didn't want to take off Gunnar Helm off field, but I get that. But I think situationally there's always a place where you can utilize different personnel groupings like that. So I think he should have more variety in his offense. Hopefully that's the case. But necessity, necessity is the mother of invention. So I think out of necessity, if the tight ends aren't getting it done, I think you'll see him explore other avenues. So good point there, Triple D.
If the running backs stay healthy, I think we'll see more 2-back with Arch as well, if they stay healthy.
Yeah, you did see something later in the year. Once it was Wisner and Blue, he was comfortable. Like, all right, I got Wisner, I got Blue. Yeah. You know, those are my guys I can trust. Once the ball security issues also were, I think less impactful on games, and the guys were more sure with the football. I think he also trusted that group more. All right, good question there.
Quick on tight end too, Rod. On tight end,
go ahead.
When you talk about the spring portal window, I hope Sark looks at this. Don't let the need. Okay, we need another tight end. Don't let that preclude you. You should have enough versatility in your offense that if there's another if there's a difference maker wide receiver out there, or a difference maker at running back, just take that guy and adjust your personnel packages accordingly, because you got the 6-0 line package. You've got ways to still get what you want functionally, but don't let's say, oh God, we got to find an experienced tight end. Well, you could, or if, like I said, if there's another wide receiver out there and you've already taken one, take the receiver or take the running back. Don't force yourself into something that's not going to maximize your offense for Arch.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Good point. All right, let's thank another one of our sponsors, our friends over at Duck Camp, before we move on here. Duck Camp produces premium outdoor goods for the outdoor spirit in each and every one of us. Duck Camp is dedicated to providing the best outdoor goods so you can outdoor good, whether you're an avid hunter or you prefer fishing, or like me, you just prefer the camaraderie of the campsite. Our friends over at Duck Camp, duckcamp.com, they're a brand that understands the culture and the good times that come along with living an outdoor lifestyle, the good friends as well that come along with living an outdoor lifestyle. So check them out today at duckcamp.com. They do a great job of having a lot of fishing and outdoor gear, but trust me, folks, I don't do a lot of fishing and hunting, but I love the stuff over at Duck Camp. It's really high quality gear, really high quality material as well. So go check it out, and you'll love their new fall selection stuff. They have a color really close to burnt orange. It's probably as close as you can get without getting a cease and desist from Texas. But it's really good. Go check it out, duckcamp.com. All right, let's get back to the questions here, gentlemen. How about this one from Chase? I'll throw this to Jerry. Will Rodney Terry be the coach next year?
Gotta make the tournament. Gotta make the tournament.
Yep.
Gotta make the tournament. It's a tough league, but gotta make the tournament, in my opinion.
This comes from Kenny Joe. He says, after listening to pro scouts and national pundits, it's clear why Texas has been unable to make it past the semifinals. Quinn never stayed healthy or fully developed to his potential. That could be good news for Quinn Ewers if scouts do feel that way, because they'll feel like, all right, well, the injuries may have kept him from hitting his ceiling at Texas, and there's still a lot of upside to him. Or I guess it could be, man, maybe he's injury prone. If he gets injured in college, then he's going to get injured in the NFL, a more physical league. And so it could work against him. So there's a lot of upside there, but yeah, you can't make the club in the tub, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's no doubt. I think the injuries, guys, definitely kept Quinn from hitting his ceiling because it felt like every time he was injured, it took him a while to get back into a groove and get back and find his rhythm as a quarterback. So even this past year, right, he gets hurt UTSA game, he's killing it. The first game, that Michigan game, I mean, he eviscerated Michigan that game. And even before he got hurt in the UTSA game, he was looking really good. And think about how good he was looking in the red zone. Think about it, particularly Sark was throwing in the red zone a lot early on. Mm-hmm. He gets hurt, and then your red zone offense starts to decay a little bit after he comes back because his rhythm is off, his timing was a little bit off, and then I think we saw him kind of struggle, be inconsistent at times. We saw the ceiling, of course. We saw 4th and 13. But I agree with it. I think the injuries kept Quinn from hitting his stride. I'm really never saw him hit that stride where he consistently put those flash performances together like Michigan and Bama for an entire stretch, a long stretch. What's the longest stretch we saw Quinn dominate? Give me the long stretch.
Probably that stretch early in 2023 leading up to clavicle. Yeah.
Yeah, we never saw the long stretch, though. Like, I want to see, like 6 games where he's just, like, lighting up the college football world. And I don't know if we ever really saw that from Quinn. We saw 2 or 3 where it's like, damn, Quinn looks good. He looks – like Michigan, we're like, I never saw Quinn look that – I mean, as good as he looked in the Michigan.
Oh, that's the best I've seen him.
Right? It was amazing. Yes. And that's, guys, there's got to be, like, 3 or 4 guys drafted in the first, 2 rounds off of that defense alone.
Yeah.
And he just went up there and lit him up. And we never saw that for stretches. And I think that's what's might help and hurt Quinn because somebody may say, you know what, I can get that consistency out of him. Somebody may feel that way, but I also think that's what hurt his draft stock ultimately.
I think he's going to be very interesting he's going to put the NFL guys in a conundrum because the pro day on air stuff's going to look stellar.
Yep.
But then they're going to go say, okay, wait, we got to go back and watch the tape. And they're not going to see it on tape. And that's going to be interesting to see. I bet there's huge splits among NFL personnel on him because they're going to see the in-person. They're going to go to the tape and say, that's not on tape.
Yeah.
And then it's going to lead to a lot of internal conversations.
Mixed reviews. On the staffs, too, probably on the same staff, probably, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he goes in the 3rd round because people overdraft quarterbacks all the time. But for the teams that would, and whoever takes him, we were worried there was a couple teams behind us that were thinking quarterback, and we were worried we wouldn't get him, if we waited to the 4th round or whatever. But just as much as there's going to be a handful of those teams, there'll be a handful of teams that probably might view him as like a 5th round or a priority free agent. I think the chasm is going to be that wide.
I agree.
Yeah, no, it's wild to think because then his best games are against like the teams that were littered with the most NFL picks. Bama's the best games against Bama and Michigan. Right? Like his worst games are against teams like I don't know. He had a bad game against who was that 2 years ago in 2023? It wasn't Rice. It was
Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State was bad.
It was 19 for 40.
Yeah, and that was the hurt hand game that he also had the hurt hand in that one. Wyoming was a terrible game that shouldn't have been bad. It was like, see, that's the thing. His worst games, some of his worst games are against subpar competition, and his best games are against the best competition he faced. And it's like, I think a lot of that though is Sark's preparation. Sark took like 3 months on that Bama game plan and that Michigan game plan. He had him ready to go for that.
Can I get back to the semifinal thing real quick, Rod? Because I forget who asked the question. I apologize, but I go back to the 2023 team and think about how how that Sugar Bowl went against Washington. And the question I ask myself, it's not anything to do with Quinn. If Jonathan Brooks doesn't get hurt, and Sark trusts his run game, I think he trusted enough to stick with it against Washington. I think Texas beats Washington, and I liked the matchup Texas had with Michigan better than the one with Washington. I've almost talked myself into Texas wins a national championship if Jonathan Brooks doesn't blow his knee out.
I think they get there. I don't think they would have beaten Michigan. I think Michigan was the best team. But to your point, Jeff, there were 2 running back fumbles in that game too.
Mhm.
Yep, third quarter. That's the start of your third quarter issues. Your third quarter was, remember the third quarter? They barely saw the football. They had like 7-8 plays because they had to fumble there and there too. And Washington dominate time possession. Something else that bothered me about that game: you were averaging damn near 10 yards per play out of pony package, and I guess your running backs fumbling isn't helping the situation. But you ran it 7 times on one drive to score your first touchdown. You ran it 2 times for the rest of the game, and I thought to myself, if you run that pony package like 8 more plays, you win that game. Like that's how small the margin of error was. But I don't disagree with that, Jeff.
I really wanted to see that matchup, the Michigan offensive line against the Texas defensive line. I wanted to see that Michigan O-line against Sweat and Murphy for 4 quarters.
Hey, so we have a special guest, guys.
Ooh,
let's bring him in.
Oh,
Mr. James Lott, Longhorn legend.
Hey.
James Lott. Hey, thank you, Mr. Lott, for joining us. I know you've been busy. The college recruiting stuff is wild for you right now. But thanks for obviously father of Jalen Lott. Jalen's mom played basketball for Jody Conrad as well. So, but James, I almost called you coach, but you've been coach a lot at some point too. We want to bring you on, kind of talk about, your time at Texas. You're actually going through your recruiting process, kind of getting to all that. And now as a father going through the recruiting process, and it's unique because you were a national recruit in 2 sports, and now your son is a national recruit and probably would be in 2 sports, right? Back in the day. But thanks for coming on, and congrats on your Texas Track Hall of Fame, Texas Track Hall of Fame honor.
Thank you. So thank you guys for having me. It's always just like when I just left the Texas Hall of Fame induction a couple of weeks back, and it was surreal that people still remember 40 some odd years ago what you did in the state of Texas as an athlete. This state is unbelievable how they kind of treat people that played and were successful at the next level. But it's really been kind of surreal, all of that rolling into, I actually have 3 kids that are actually athletes. I have a young lady, that's Jasmine Lott, that's at UNLV, basically playing basketball. And then I got also Fallon Lott. She's a freshman at USC. She runs track and field. And of course, my pride and joy, my only boy, Jalen, is one of the higher recruited kids here in the state of Texas. So it's been surreal going through it all. Of course, recruiting's changed a ton since I came out, and when Rod came out. It's really grown into a lot of social media. There's a lot of different aspects, steps to it that I look at today, and I'm like, wow, what's up with the NIL? What's all this? I come from the school where it was all about just, hey man, show up and play hard. You got a free scholarship. You got all this already, free meals. What do you need all this extra for? So, but it's been a blessing for a family, and so I'm honored, and then honored to be on the show. Appreciate you guys having me.
No, thank you for coming on with us, James. Now, I want you're a member of DBU like me, so those appreciate you coming on with us. But your son plays both sides of the ball. James plays offense and defense. I know these days everybody wants to play offense. Everybody wants to catch touchdowns. The ladies like the dudes catching touchdowns. Fantasy football is all about that. What do you prefer Jalen play? Do you think he's a better player on offense or on defense?
You asking me a question. You trying to get me in trouble here. No. As a father, seeing them develop, I know we started out when he was younger. We played him in multiple positions. And one thing I always did with all my kids, I didn't want to place any limitations on what they could do. So when he played football with the, youth football, he played both sides. He actually was a quarterback earlier. He played quarterback and defensive back. He's only been playing receiver for 2 years. Although he's a pretty good defensive back, he's also an elite receiver. At the end, I think he can kind of play either. We got schools recruiting him as a receiver. Some recruit him as a corner. Some recruit him as both. We even had a certain school come in a couple of days ago, and they actually said, "I don't care what he plays. We'll take him as O-line." He's that good a player. I don't care what he plays. So it's good to be in that situation where schools, major universities are coming in and asking, about your kid, and so it's been crazy the last couple of months, the recruiting process and so forth.
While we watch him run around faster than anybody else on a field, I want to take you back to your high school days, because a lot of people on this chat, they may have not heard your story. In Refugio, when did you realize what you could be? Because you're a small town guy, man, and you held a high jump record for a damn long time. When did you realize what you could be?
Well, coming out of a small town like Refugio, there's been other guys came in after me, of course, Willie Mack Garza, Toya Jones. Incidentally, we're all cousins. Everybody in Refugio is a cousin. So when I came out early to set the trend, I was just, a small town guy, and I was just trying to get out and make something of myself. So early on, probably 6th or 7th grade, I realized I had a talent for athletics, and it was athletics and riding horses down in the country. So part of my time I was riding horses. My grandfather had horses, and the other times I was being an athlete. But early on, I realized that I was, I was pretty good at that stuff, and it could get me out of where I was in an education. Back then, that's all you were getting, education. And so I seized that moment and said, "Hey, man, I'm gonna put everything into that and see where it takes me." And it took me to the University of Texas and on.
James, I just want to ask you real quick, just as a lifetime Longhorn, as a letterman, you got to Texas at a time where they were playing some of the best defense we've ever seen on the 40 acres.
Yes, sir.
How good does it make you feel now to watch a Texas game these last couple of years with Pete Kwiatkowski, where they're getting back to winning games with defense and playing good, tough, physical football on defense?
Yeah, I mean, that's it's great to see, because they, in the years past, they were known for offense. And matter of fact, as I'm watching these last couple of years, I'm like, you're used to the big time offensive and the big time play call of our Sark, but you over the years you wasn't really watching the defense because they weren't great. But so it's been good to watch it now back, and it takes me back in the day where we used to win championships based on defense at Texas. I know most folks on this chat won't know that because they weren't around, but back in the day we used to play great defense. All the corners played man to man. Rod knows.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We didn't play much zone. It was all cat coverage. You got that cat over there.
Yeah.
So those were the days. But it's good to go out and just sit in the stands and sit back and say, "Wow, man, this place has come a long way." It's going to be interesting how my son's recruiting goes. He'll make his own decision. But it's good to have options out there like the University of Texas.
Hey, James, I wanted to ask, who did you pick Texas over coming out of high school?
So actually, I picked him over someone I just met with. I was actually meeting with Coach Lashley from SMU, and we were talking, and he said he was asking me like, when did you come out? I was like, Coach Lashley, you don't want to know when I came in because when I came out was when SMU was when SMU was really SMU at their
Right.
big stage. But I remember, going and my decision actually came down to SMU and Texas, and I chose Texas.
Wow. Hey, just can I ask you, was because you obviously were a two-sport athlete and you excelled in both sports, so you're a world-class freaky athlete. Was there an athlete on campus, on the team, that you thought was, more athletic than you at the time when you were on the 40?
No. There was a guy, and he'll probably have he'll say, "I told you so." One guy was Eric Metcalf.
Oh yeah, man.
And Eric Metcalf and I was we both ran football and track.
Yeah.
So we came straight from football and straight into track. And I was a little bit older than him, so I would go to the track meets early in his career, and I would be winning, and I'd be winning national championships, and he'd be like, you can tell he had something about him that was like, this guy's gonna be real one day.
Mm-hmm.
But I used to, I remember, making fun of him, and we'd be at the national meeting. I said, "Boy, I tell you, you couldn't hang with me. I won nationals, and you barely made the finals." So we used to hard time about that, but then very quickly, I looked up and he was winning national championships also. So Eric Metcalf's probably going to be the guy that was someone that I would look at and say, especially on the track side, where I would at least say, "Oh, he's similar to me."
Yeah. Wow.
Hey, so I wanted to ask you this, and I've never asked you, and we've talked a couple of times before. Of course, you're the NCAA high jump champion multiple times, but 7 4 3/4 in high school at a small school. I can't imagine you grew up thinking about high jump, right?
Well,
How in the hell did that happen? And when did you look up at 7 foot and say, "Yeah, I got this"?
and what's strange about that story? I tell this story to some people, and the only people that seem to sort of relate sometimes is when you say it to other athletes that have set records. So one of the things was when I was really young, I remember 7th, 8th grade, because all the other students at my high school, they were doing their thing, running around, partying and stuff. Well, I was, watching those 8-track videos of Ronaldo Nehemiah running the hurdles, and some of the best high jumpers. I would get these videos and I would watch them. And so at my grandmother's house, and people, my siblings would be like, "What are you doing, guy? Go outside and play and stuff." But I would watch these videos, and not till later on in life did I figure out that was kind of strange. 13, 14-year-old. And
that's why you got records.
Yeah. And then the other thing I did is when I figured out I was going to be a decent high jumper, I think it was right around my 8th grade year. I actually looked up the world junior and national record for the high jump. I looked it up.
Wow.
And once I determined what it was, I was like, I can jump that. But at the time I was jumping like 6'2". And so I set a goal at that moment, and y'all gonna get a kick out of this one. I used to jump over the fence in my high school and go and pull the hurdles out. And while other kids are getting in trouble, I hop the fence, and people would come up. You can't be out here running over hurdles and jumping and stuff. But it was like I had a plan back then, and everybody would, they'd sort of look at me like, dude, whatever, you not, whatever. And so it kind of worked from there. And I remember the day that I set at the time, it was the world junior record, highest jump by 18-year-old ever. And I remember the day I ran the hurdles, long jump. I had, so the high jump was the only thing left. And so I had this thing about me where I would actually wait till all the other participants would go out. So I tried to pull this at state, trying to be too cocky. And I actually, the last guy went out at 6'2". So the person that runs the high jumps like, Mr. Lott, last call, if you want to jump at this height. I was like, no, I'm going to pass the 6'8". And so the lady says to me, are you sure? And I was like, I am positive. Because in my head, I had already went through the process in my mind. And so I come and I start high jumping, and I go, and I actually missed twice. And so my high school coach came up to me. He's like, if you don't get those freaking sweats off, and get over this bar, I'm going to kill you. So I take my sweats off. And then I go, 6'8", 6'10", 7 foot, 7'2", 7'3", all on my first attempt.
Wow.
And then I said, put it up to the world record, junior record, and they put it up, and I made it on my second attempt. And you talk about I always talk to my son about setting goals, and I had set that goal long before when I was small. And but every year I built up, I got better. I didn't let anybody distract me or tell me that what I couldn't do. And I just stayed with it, and it led to that record that still stands today. So it's a real good feeling to have.
That is amazing. That is.
I got a last question I have for you. I know the other guy. I know you got to go, and the guys probably have a couple of questions. Here's the last one I have for you. Your time at Texas on the Texas football team. Who's the best player on that team? Because y'all had some talent.
You talking about all 4 years?
Yes. Who was the best player that came through Texas?
Mossy K.
Okay.
Oh, Mossy, yeah. DB.
Mossy K.
Yeah.
Metcalf was in that group of guys. My freshman year, man, I think we had 18 guys drafted.
That's why I asked you, because that's a tough one, right? I was like, well, you just throw out Ricky Williams and you're done.
Yeah, well, Ricky wasn't there when I was there.
No, I just meant later on, like if you came in at the time when Ricky was there. Y'all had 18 draft picks on that team.
You had 18 draft picks, so you would go out to practice, and it would be like, oh, my God, especially me coming from a small – I remember going to those practices and playing receiver.
Yeah.
I started out at receiver, and I remember going and trying to block some of those linebackers and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, what have I got myself into? But it was a lot of talent on those teams, boy. That's how else do you get that many people drafted back in the day?
Yeah.
James, for people that weren't around to see it, you got to Texas at a time where the Southwest Conference was probably at its peak as a football conference. Would you compare the Southwest Conference in kind of the early to mid 80s, kind of where maybe the SEC or the Big Ten is right now, just in terms of the talent level in the conference is so superior to everybody else?
I think the talent level is in the Southwest Conference was similar. the difference I think now is the depth of the SEC. There's everybody in the SEC has players. So when you watch Ole Miss, when you watch, Auburn, you watch Texas, you watch all these teams, Texas A&M, they're loaded with players. And I think the Southwest Conference was really good, but I don't think we had that depth across the board at all the schools like it is in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mr. Lott, honestly, I can keep asking you questions all day long. I know you got stuff to do, so we appreciate your time and we appreciate the great stories and the insight too. It's fantastic having you on.
Anytime.
I don't think we'll ever get another guest that's a 2-time Hall of Fame inductee, by the way. So have a great weekend with your Hall of Fame inductions in the family, Coach Lott. I call you Coach Lott.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Man, that is fantastic. I cannot believe
that high jump story is hilarious, man.
I mean, he basically said self-taught. He was self-taught how to high jump, basically.
That's kind of why I asked him that, because I'm thinking really small. I mean, what was Arperio when he came out of high school? 1A?
Had to be 1A or 2A, yeah.
1A, 2A max?
He was watching like 8-track, whatever he said. When he said he was watching whatever, that's how he started getting, obviously a bit of a visual, how to high jump, that kind of thing. And then he said he missed on 6'8" twice.
With he had his sweats on. He had his sweats on. He just thought he was going to. Coach was like, "Hey man." Coach goes, "Hey man."
It reminds me of that Bo Jackson story. Story about Bo Jackson running the 40 before he ran his alleged 4.1 40. Was that he was running with like sweats on and stuff at first when he ran like a 4.3, and his coach was like, "You need to show these people what they want to see. Take off them sweats and go out there and run for these people." And rather than ran like a 4.1 or something like that. So freaky athletes. Yeah, he's one of them. James Lott is definitely one of them. That's crazy. I cannot believe that. All right. Before we get out of here, oh man, that was great. Thank you, Jerry, for that. That was fantastic. I'm gonna ask Jerry to tell you about our friends at South Point. We'll take like a couple more questions. And sorry we couldn't get to all the questions, guys, but we had a very special guest, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll take a couple more before we get done. But Jerry, would you tell our friends here about our friends over at South Point Dodge before we get done?
Definitely will. Hey, Texas football fans, score an easy point next season when you get to the point at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock, and their award-winning sales staff doesn't do games or gimmicks. They get straight to the point by getting you the very best deal. So score big today at South Point Dodge. Come see us off I-35 in South Austin or at southpointdodge.com. Get to the point at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge is Austin's automotive everything. Looking to sell that car? Get South Point's best offer over the phone or online. The only thing that could make this read better was if there was a video of James Lott jumping a South Point Dodge truck back in the day. Because he could have.
He could have, man.
He just jumped and flipped over it.
That is fantastic. Okay, so I want to talk about Barron Sorrell really quickly before we get out of here. Bay Area Longhorn, and I saw we had Barry Sorrell on, so shout out family was on the chat here. Says thoughts on Sorrell's performance in Mobo and how it impacts his draft stock. Looked great in one-on-one drills, even against LSU's Emory Jones. I saw a lot of the clips, so he looked really, really good, and I've heard that he actually improved his stock overall. I've always thought this season watching Barron Sorrell, he's a guy with a Sunday skill set. Where he's going to get drafted, that's a different question altogether. But I do think this is him proving to NFL scouts he may be worth draft capital and them spending. Right now, I'm thinking it's a late round draft pick for Barron Sorrell. But what do you guys' thoughts after watching him at the Senior Bowl? Oh, Jeff, you're mute.
My bad. My hope is that his performance in Mobile leads to a combine invite. Because combine, he tests well, then there's no question he's drafted. He either way, whether he's drafted or not, he's going to be on an NFL roster in 2025. Like especially, you get the further along you get to day 3 of the draft. I compare that to if you're in recruiting, that's like your 3-star prospects where beauty's in the eye of the beholder at that point, and you're looking for one or two things. You're looking for an elite tool that maybe you can cultivate, or man, you're just looking for ball players. I need a guy that I can trust to put in a game, that can play special teams, that can basically his roster spot. I can manufacture 3 or 4 different roster spots with that one. So I think Sorrell fits that mold. To me, a combine invite will only help him at this point. That's what I hope this leads to.
That's a good point.
And I'll add on to that. I totally agree. You know what I think his elite trait is?
Oh, give it to me. I like this.
Him when he interviews with teams.
Oh, that's good. That is good. That's good. And you know what?
It's the whole Royale Ivy thing.
Yeah.
Royale Ivy played 10, 12 years in the NBA as a second round pick, right? There's only 2 rounds of the draft. Did he have an elite skill set? Royale? Remember watching him play? Was there anything he did that was elite? You know what was elite? Locker room, leadership, team, all that stuff. I think Barron Sorrell will crush the interview process.
To that point, Jerry, I looked up snaps of all the edge defenders at the Senior Bowl. He has the most snaps played. To that point, because even at Texas, he got better every year. And Texas, they upgraded the roster every year. So there was guys there to take his spot. And it's kind of like I remember being in that position too. I remember Rod B being there. And they kept bringing in the Huff Daddies and the Cedric Griffins. And I looked at him and was like, them dudes going to be some dudes. But they ain't taking my spot. It just pushed me to be better. And I feel like Barron Sorrell got that. So I think Christian Jones got some of that where it just kept pushing them. Nobody can take your spot. And you got to be getting better every day to do that. All right, one last one. David Keith Williams says, Rod Babers, do you think Thorpe Barron had the best season of a UTDB since Aaron Ross in 2006? Earl Thomas had a great 2009 season, but there were mistakes he made that year, unlike Barron. That A-Ross season, I would say the film of Janae Barron, I went back and looked at it, and I see why guys like Darren Jeremiah are putting him like in their top, 15 and stuff like that, because his film is as good as any DB I've seen in a long time, man. It is clean. He's got like 3 busts and 3, in my opinion, errors on that film. Probably less than a handful on that film. Makes plays in big games. I'm going to have my DBU rankings coming out later on this offseason. I am struggling, David Keith Williams. My top 4 is my top 4. Johnny Johnson, Jerry Gray, Michael Huff, Aaron Ross. Can he crack the top 4? I don't know, but he might be number 5. Like he might just be right outside that Mount Rushmore. We got Janae Barron done. And we just talked to another great one too. And missed a lot. All right. Thank you guys for all the questions. Sorry we couldn't get to all of them. I apologize about that. But we had a very special guest. Thank you to Jerry once again for getting Mr. Lot on. That was fantastic. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes. Matthew's a real MVP. Couldn't do it without him. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to Duck Camp. Thank you to Flat Creek Estate Winery. Thank you to also to South Point Dodge. Thank you, Jeff, for all of your knowledge. Thank you, Jerry. We appreciate all of your expertise. And until next time, for Jeff, for Jerry, for Matthew, I'm Rod Babers. Hook 'em horns.